All right, guys, come hang out. We're going to come look at this interview and see if Kamala Harris actually answers some questions. Okay, so without further ado, let's get right into this. We're also going to be fact checking because she's probably going to lie.
Madam Vice President, you just laid out your economic vision for the future.
Yeah.
But still, there are lots of Americans who don't see themselves in your plans. For those who say these policies aren't for me, what do you say to them?
Well, if you are hardworking, if you have the dreams and the ambitions and the aspirations of what I believe you do, you're in my plan. You know, I have to tell you, I really love and am so energized by what I know to be the spirit and character of the American people. We have ambition. We have aspirations. We have dreams. We can see what's possible. We have an incredible work ethic. But not everyone has the access to the opportunities that allow them to achieve those things. But we don't lack for those things. But not everyone, you know, gets handed stuff on a silver platter. And so my vision for the economy, I call it an opportunity economy, is about making sure that all Americans, wherever they start, wherever they are, have the ability to actually achieve those dreams and those ambitions, which include, for middle-class families, just being able to know that their hard work allows them to get ahead, right? I think we can't and we shouldn't aspire to have an economy that just allows people to get by. People want to do more than just get by. They want to get ahead. And I come from the middle class. Look, my mother...
Okay, hold on. Here she goes with the, I come from the middle class. We know, Kamala, we know you were raised in a middle class family. We get it. You've told us 100 times. And here she goes with the pre-rehearsed lines. But what I find interesting is she's talking about the American people getting ahead. But under her administration, the American people have actively gotten behind. Credit card debt is at an all-time high. Okay. Wages have not been outpacing inflation. Inflation has actually outpaced wages. This means there's actually a negative real growth. So what I'm saying is Americans are making more money than they ever have in a lot of ways, but everything is so much more expensive than it's ever been that they're actually more broke than they were when Trump was in office. Yeah, they're making more money, but they're more broke than they were because everything is more expensive. The inflation has outpaced the wages. And her administration's policies have played a significant role in that happening to the American people. So the Biden-Harris administration has been actively implementing policies to the detriment of the American people, but they act like they play no part in it. And now she's acting like she's the person to solve the problem. When there was a small fire when she came, imagine, this is basically what she did. She walked into a room, there was a small fire, and she grabbed gasoline and poured gasoline on it. That's what the Biden-Harris administration did. And now they're telling you they're the people who are going to solve the problem and put the fire out. They're not. Do not believe them. And they will gaslight you and try to make you think everything is Trump's fault. No.
Mother raised my sister and me. She worked hard. She saved up. By the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy our first home. And, you know, home ownership for too many people in our country now is elusive. You know, gone is the day of everyone thinking they could actually live the American dream. So part of my vision for the economy is let's deal with some of the everyday challenges that people face and address them with common sense solutions, such as affordable housing.
And price gouging.
Over the last 4 years, there have been tremendous economic wins, and you've just laid out a big plan. But still, polling shows that most likely voters still think Donald Trump is better to handle the economy. Why do you think that is?
Well, here's what I know in terms of the facts. Donald Trump left us with the worst economy since the Great Depression. When you look at, for example...
Lie. She said, this is what I know as of the facts. She clearly doesn't know her facts. He did not leave them with the worst since the Great Depression in terms of the economy. They're talking about the unemployment rate. Unemployment rate was at like 6.8% when she got into office, right? The peak was at like 14 point, I think it was 14.7, 14 point something percent was the peak unemployment during COVID. And you know what states had the highest unemployment rates? Blue states, because they were putting the most restrictions on people. So I want you to think about this, and I'm going to show you how disingenuous and dishonest this woman is. Blue states had the highest restrictions, therefore had the highest unemployment rates. She's now blaming that on Donald Trump and saying Donald Trump left us the highest unemployment rate, when in reality, blue states and their policies are what created the majority of the unemployment rate in this country. It wasn't Republicans, it wasn't Trump, it was Democrats. But she's trying to gaslight you into thinking it was Trump. It's disgusting. And it's so bad that this host is about to call her out.
Example, the employment numbers.
It was during COVID, and employment was so high because we shut down the government, we shut down the country.
Even before
Bingo.
the pandemic, he lost manufacturing jobs by most people's estimates, at least 200,000. He lost manufacturing plants. Ask the auto workers how he lost auto plants. We have grown over 20 new auto plants. He has an agenda. Let's just deal with it right now going forward, not to mention what happened in the past. He has an agenda that would include making it more difficult for workers to earn overtime, an agenda that...
He quite literally is saying no tax on overtime. Notice how she never really explains any of our positions. She just says a bunch of shit. But the man is literally incentivizing people to work more by saying, hey, if your overtime, the money you make on overtime, we're not taxing it. Get out there and get your money. He's incentivizing people to do that. That incentivizes people to be more productive, and it helps the American economy. But she's not going to tell you that.
That would include cutting off access to small business loans for small businesses, an agenda that includes tariffs to the point that the average working person will spend 20% more on everyday necessities and an estimated $4,000 more a year on those everyday necessities, to the point that top economists in our country, from Nobel laureates to people at Moody's and Goldman Sachs, have compared my plan with his and said my plan would grow the economy, his would shrink the economy. Some of them have...
She said this same tired to all of this during the debate. It's like she has these pre-rehearsed and pre-recorded lines that she files through in her head when she's asked a question. And even if it doesn't answer the question, she's still going to say that shit. Like, bro, like, okay, list, like, what's the best way to say this? Let's go back a little bit, okay?
At Moody's and Goldman Sachs have compared my plan with his.
The head of Goldman Sachs literally came out after, because she said the same stuff during the debate. He literally came out after the debate and said, yeah, that's all being blown out of proportion. It was an independent study, and like it was like a 0.1% difference in the plans. She's not going to tell you that. She's going to try to beef it all up and make it seem like something it's not. Because again, she has to gaslight and manipulate her way into the White House. Why do you think she's been hiding from the media? Why do you think she won't come out and clear up all her past positions that she's had? Why? There's a reason she won't do it. Think about it.
And said my plan would grow the economy, his would shrink the economy. Some of them have actually assessed that his plan would increase inflation and invite a recession by the middle of next year. So the facts remain that Donald Trump has a history of taking care of very rich people. And I'm not mad at anybody for being rich, but they should pay their fair share. But tax cuts for the billionaires and the top corporations in our country, and then not really paying much attention to middle-class families.
He literally gave tax cuts to middle-class families. You see how she just left that out? She didn't want to tell you that. This man, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, go look it up, 2017. He literally gave tax cuts to everybody virtually. I think except the lowest who really don't pay taxes anyway. Like people like making it like, I think it was like 10 grand a year. He virtually gave tax cuts and tax breaks to everybody. But what the Democrats do is they ignore the fact that he gave it for regular people and only focus on the billionaires, because they have to make him seem like he's a devil and he only cares about billionaires in order to get your vote. They have to manipulate you in order to get your vote, rather than just being honest and saying, yes, he gave tax cuts for everyone, including the middle class. They can't do that because it puts a hole in their argument, because their argument is he's big, orange, bad, and only cares about himself and his rich friends. It's stupid. The reality is, in addition to that, if he only cared about rich people, and she'll probably talk about this if I remember correctly, but he also signed an executive order for insulin, capping it at $35. That wasn't the Biden-Harris administration's idea. That was Trump. They just took it and signed it into law with Congress.
My perspective on the economy is when you grow the middle class, America's economy is stronger. And there's empirical evidence to prove my point correct.
Then let me ask you about taxes, because lots of people will say, I don't like Donald Trump, but he cut my taxes. He didn't just cut corporate taxes, he cut individual taxes. Now that expires next year, and there's some people confused saying, I don't know what's going to happen next year. Under a Harris administration, at what income level should someone expect their taxes to go up? And that state and local tax deduction that's currently capped and matters to a lot of people in blue states, are you going to lift that cap?
So, first of all, when it relates to anybody making less than $400,000 a year, your taxes will not go up. Your taxes will not go up. And in fact, under my plan, taxes for 100 million Americans will actually be cut, including $6,000 a year for young couples for the first year of their child's life in a tax cut, a tax credit, essentially, by expansion of the child tax credit. And why is that? Because during the first year of a young couple, of a person's child's life, they're going to need help buying a crib, buying a car seat. And we all benefit when they're actually able to do what they naturally want to do to take care of their child.
And expanding that child tax credit, or you mentioned housing before, giving that extra money for a first home. If you can't raise corporate taxes, or if GOP takes control of the Senate, where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to.
Kamala, that's not what she asked you. What she asked you is if you can't raise corporate taxes, you know you would need Congress to be able to do that. So what she's asking is, hey, if the GOP gets control and you can't raise corporate taxes like you want to, what are you going to do then? And this is her pathetic answer. Like, this woman's running for president. Oh, I just messed up. Actually, maybe not. Let's see.
Families. My perspective on the to prove my
taxes. Now that expires under a Harris administration, go up, and that state and local tax, you can
less than $400,000 act actually be couples of buying what they naturally want to do
for giving that P takes control of the Senate.
Here you go.
Where do you get the money to do that? Do you still go forward with those plans and borrow?
Well, but we're going to have to raise corporate taxes, and we're going to have to make sure that the biggest corporations and billionaires pay their fair share. That's
Here
just
she goes.
It's
That's
about
just it. That's just it. Well, if you don't have control of Congress, Kamala, how are you going to still get accomplished what you want to get accomplished? Well, we still got to accomplish it. This woman's running for president. This is unreal. This will be the equivalent of someone asking you, hey, your engine just fell out of your car and you need to get to work. So how are you going to get to work? And this person says, well, I got to get to work. I got to get to work. That's not what they asked you. They asked you, how are you going to get work? She's asking Kamala Harris, how are you going to get this done if Democrats don't control the Senate, the House, and the presidency? And she has no answer because she's not going to get it done. What she says is, well, we got to get it done. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Thank you. We know that's your goal, but answer the question. The woman does not answer questions.
Paying their fair share. I am not mad at anyone for achieving success, but everyone should pay their fair share. And it is not right that the teachers and the firefighters that I meet every day across our country are paying a higher tax than the richest people in our country.
They're not necessarily paying a higher tax than the richest people in our country. Here's the difference. The richest people in our country, okay, in a lot of cases, they have a lot of assets. So you have asset appreciation. These assets will appreciate in value. Now, just because an asset appreciates in value and you don't sell it, that doesn't mean you saw a profit. You didn't make any money. You actually have to sell that asset before you actually make money, right? So the people that she's talking about, firefighters, nurses, police officers, teachers, whatever, they have earned income, right? They go to their job. That job, they have a W-2, they get paid, right? That's earned income, okay? The wealthiest people she's talking about, they keep making all this money. It's really their net worth increasing is due to asset appreciation. But you can't tax these assets unless someone sells them because they didn't make any money till they sell it. So the reason that she wants to have taxes on unrealized gains is because she wants to go after people who have amassed large amounts of wealth, right? But again, but if they were to go work a job, right, and they had the same type of income that nurses and firefighters do, they would get taxed the same. For the same reason, a nurse and firefighter or teachers, their stocks aren't getting taxed the same way the billionaire stocks aren't getting taxed. It's just the billionaire has a lot more than them. But if the billionaire went and worked a job where he was getting paid ordinary income, he would be taxed just like the firefighter and just like the teacher, right? So what this does is it incentivizes people to amass large amounts of wealth because she wants to go take your unrealized gains. She wants to tax them into oblivion, right? It's stupid. She manipulates people into thinking these people are not paying their fair share. They are, right? If you were to make a bunch of money and then invest a bunch of that money in stocks, and those stocks 10x, and now you've got $10 million, and she's out here telling you you're not paying your fair share, you paid your taxes on the money you earned, and then from that you invested it and got a good return. And now, even though you haven't sold it, she expects you to pay your fair share. And who gets to decide what your fair share is? Right? Like it's unreal to me how she's acting like, yeah, they need to pay their fair share. And she's basically saying, without saying, I'm the one who's going to decide what their fair share is. No.
Bill Gates just said it this week. If he was in charge of taxes, he would have paid more. But how do you find that line to make sure corporations are paying their fair share, but they're not leaving our country?
Well, listen, I work with a lot of CEOs. I have spent a lot of time with CEOs, and I'm going to tell you that the business leaders who are actually part of the engine of America's economy agree that people should pay their fair share. They also agree that when we look at a plan such as mine that is about investing in the middle class, investing in new industries, investing in bringing down costs, invest in entrepreneurs like small businesses, that the overall economy is stronger and everyone benefits. Part of my plan for the economy is investing in new industries in a way that we have active partnership with the private sector. I've worked with the private sector my entire career. Even as vice president, working with some of the biggest banks and biggest tech companies to increase by billions of dollars the money going into community banks to increase access to capital for small businesses. Why do those biggest corporations and CEOs do that? Because they know those kinds of investments, like in our small businesses, in startups and entrepreneurs, actually strengthens America's economy overall, and everyone benefits. So this is not about bilking anybody, but it is certainly about saying, let's make sure that we create opportunities for everyone to grow wealth. I believe that it is not sufficient, and it should not be our goal to just make sure everyone is working. That should be the baseline. That should be a given.
She's talking about growing wealth, but she has to rely on manipulating people's economic illiteracy to make them think that these people that have amassed wealth aren't paying their fair share. You have the same ability that these people have to buy and invest in the stock market or in real estate. Right now, you're going to have to do some work and you're going to have to figure out how to make more money, sure, right? But the majority of millionaires and billionaires are self-made. Most of them were not given hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not really how it works in the vast majority of cases. So you have the same, you're in the US, most people are using tech, internet anyway, don't get me started. Long story short, I'm tired of hearing her talk about growing wealth when she's talking about taxing unrealized gains. That's literally how you destroy wealth, is you tax it. And then when you tax that wealth, it can't, they say compound interest is the eighth wonder. It can't compound because you're taxing it, or it can't compound as fast, I should say. It can compound, but she and her policies will be a stunt to people's growth. Mark my words. Anyway, that's all I got for this one. I'll see you on the next one. Like, share, subscribe. Y'all have a good night. Peace.